We're gonna take a trip back in time this week, back to the 80s, back to the future. We're gonna watch my childhood growing up, actually starting in the 70s. But I want to show you about growing up on the farm and the unique way I grew up. Grew up farming and logging with horses and very small equipment. Raising a lot of horses, raising sheep. Here's a picture of me at about 10 years old, driving a pair of gray mares. They were Percheron quarter horse cross. Nice mares, about 16 hands. There's the same mares on the bobsled feeding sheep. We'd feed about 30 bales a day or something. It was probably barley in those bags. We'd feed about 200 pounds of barley each day. I'll take you around the wall first for the simple reason, if I take these out of the frame, they probably won't get put back in the frame or the frames will bust up. There's the old man's logging operation in about 1979, a 41 steel and a 75 steel. Move over here, there's the 41 steel and 75 steel and my Fisher Price. I did a lot of cutting with that. We'll move up here. I was about 12 years old logging, skid and ash. Both of these pieces. That was a mare and a stud I was driving. Logging right next door to there today. Here's one of my favorites. This is my dad and a couple of my nieces, and there's quite a lot of sheep there. I bet there's 200 ewes all gathered up, and if you look on the right-hand side, that's our old Border Collie Ahab. Had them gathered right up there. And there's old Ahab. He was a good old dog, I'll tell you. Legendary, he was so good. I'll just move up here. We're getting ready to do some dragging with 4 horses. I was probably about 12 years old, maybe 13 there, helping get hitched. Always loved this painting. This is the same mares, if I could get them in focus there. Back in a manure spreader into the barn. Oh, that was probably around 90, 91. Yeah, I'll take you up. I gotta stand on a chair to get here. That's about 1977. I was probably a yearling, taking a nap on my dad's lap. And this was in later years, but we did it forever. Trying to get rid of the shadow with my hand for you. Threshing. We had a Farm All H power and an Oliver Red River Special thrashing machine. Again, that's the mare and stud on the thrasher. That's me and our friend Corky Willett on the load of oats. My dad was quite an oat grower. Well, get my ass off the chair without crashing and we'll go through these pictures. That's what it's about today. This is about 1979. Whoa, I dropped the phone. I am 3 and the puppy is Ahab. We'd probably just moved up there. I always tell people I lived my whole life up in this valley. And that's not quite true. I lived in Machias until I was 2. And then we moved up here. One day, here I am in Machias, sitting on my dad's lap. Green overalls. What a dresser I was. One day, my dad owned this farm, and he was always spending a lot of time up here, but we lived in the town of Machias. Not much of a town, but a town nonetheless. And came home one day, and there was nothing in the house. Everything had moved out, and my mom had moved all of our stuff up here to the farm. She said, you spend all of your time at the farm, we're going to live there. So that's where we lived ever since. That is me and my sister. And I'm in a polyester leisure suit. Man, I had style. My sister, she was the closest in age sibling to me. She was the only one that lived with us. She was 16 years older than me. That's Patty. Quite important in my life, my sister was. As all my brothers and sisters are, but they were all older than me by quite a bit, and moved on and had kids that were actually older than I am. So I wasn't around them as much. Anyway, the polyester leisure suit. Patty made sure I was cool. This is up to the Reynolds Road farm where we are today, carrying in some wood by the wood stove. gathering some eggs. Now that's a good pair of overalls. Herb Tarlick would have liked that. Riding the sheep, doing a little bronc busting, getting ready for the national finals there. This would be up on my uncle's farm. That's actually my brother's tractor. He farmed it up there before my uncle moved up there. That's a Super C with a farmhand wheel rake. That's my mom holding me on there, doing a little tractor driving. My kitty Morris. So yeah, you see I am starting at the beginning of this. That's me in the swimming pool in the 77 GMC my dad bought. I bought it from him later, and that was one of my first trucks. Splitting some firewood. Got my little Fisher-Price hammer and the wedge. What's it say? Brandt T. Ainsworth, splitting firewood. March of 1978, Machias. And as you turn up our road where I live, it used to be a dirt road. Now it's not, but this was, and they trimmed it in recent years, the first thing you'd see. And that's how everybody knew our road, the donut tree, as you started to drive up the valley. There's Patty and I. I think that was picture day. There's my parents, my mom and dad at Christmas time. That was up to my grandma Moretta's. The old man with his sideburns and his boots, pant legs tucked into his boots. He had a lot of dark hair then. This one would be my parents from right to left. My dad Earl, my mother Jerry, my dad's mother Moretta, and to the left is Patty wearing my sister Patty wearing her Jordashes. And here I am. I had a happy birthday. I looked to be about 3 then. I had a Gleaner combine. My dad was good friends with an Alice Chalmers dealer, and that's where a lot of my toys came from, but I was happy for it. That was my Gleaner combine. And there's my dad on his Gleaner combine. That's a 1964 Model E with a 10-foot cut. That would have actually ran a 12-foot head, but we got the 10-foot cut because that's what would fit in the barn. Had a scour clean. Dad was quite a grower of oats. He could get 100 bushel to the acre. So it wasn't all work. There I am playing football. I was a lousy football player. Didn't even know the rules. Probably the only football player with a shit spreader and a cornfield in the background there. That was my dad's stud, Dr. Rock. He had a well-bred pedigree. Good horse, too. Good head on him, as you see there. Not a real big stud, but boy, his colts grew. All of his colts outgrew him. Oh, he went back to Fury's Rock and Fury's Commander. Modern Chief, I can't remember. I'm not much of a bloodlines guy. And that was my mare. I got her when I was 10. I don't know, I may have been 14 in that picture. I'd bought that wagon. Jill, she was a pretty mare. She lived to be 27, did a lot of work. She won a horse pull and a horse show in her 20s. She raised 8 foals. She did a lot of farm work and logging. And right behind Jill, you can see a little bit just to the front of her there, is Rambo. So this picture was 1992. Would I have been 16 then? I guess I was. Yep. 1992 that picture was. I know Rambo was born in 92, and I can show you the day. Jill, that's what she looked like the day we brought her home. She was my 10th Christmas present. And by spring, that's what we had her looking like. Here we are breaking her. Well, we are. I think I'm taking the picture. I was actually a part of this. That's my dad leading the black horse, my uncle heading the gray horse, and hooking him up for the first time with that mare. And we'd went up the road a mile and a half or so, and on our way back, I think it was still a dirt road back then, definitely snowy. There goes Jill walking. You know, one thing I can guarantee you, if you look on some of these, that's breaking Jill's foal later. Fancy, first foal we raised out of her. Breaking her again with a quarter horse cross. I guarantee some of these collars and some of this equipment that you're watching from the 80s is out in the barn today, and it's some of the same stuff you watch in our videos today that we're putting on horses and showing in the Collar and Hames video. I got a bobsled load of firewood pulling up to the house. This would be a long sled load of firewood pulling up to the house. That was a big part of life, firewood was. First foal we raised. Oh, that may have been 89, maybe. I can't remember. His name was Thunder, and that was Babe. She was the quarter horse cross, the red brown one back then. He was a good horse. Thunder grew up to weigh probably a ton, be a 17-hand horse. He had a full sister, well, nearly a full sister out of the same stud, and the mares were full sisters. Yeah, he hung around a long time, Thunder did. And here's the guy that bought Thunder, Bill O'Connell. You know, look at that lush pasture. My gosh, I long for those days. I don't have any pasture anymore. I got to feed horses all year round. But yeah, Bill in the background with a cowboy hat and the sleeveless shirt. He was quite a man. He lived over to Machias, and he bought Thunder and Beauty and enjoyed his retirement with that pair of horses. Did a great job. They actually turned gray. There's Thunder drinking. Mama checking on Thunder. That would be Lady in the background. She was springing. She was getting ready to have a colt. There's some more of the gray mares. Going to show you a lot of foal pictures. That was a pretty important part of our life, actually. Jill with one of her later foals. Like I say, she actually had 9 of them. One was born dead, but she raised 8 of them. And 6 went to the same exact family. 6 of her foals bred to the same stud, all went to the same family. All in all, we sold them 9 horses, all by our stallion. So pretty happy customers. They were a Amish family that farms with horses. There's a foal. And don't ask me if I remember any of the foals' names. Usually I do the mares. That was old Jill. Lady with a foal. My dad watching. Jill with another foal. That foal was Rambo. That was at a county fair. They had to take him back in between classes so he could drink. Rambo was the first bay we raised. Like I said, born in 1990. Couple of foals. We let them run in and out and enjoy a lot of freedom. Started them eating grain independent right at a young age. We called that one Wolfie. I remember he was out of a Howie Wolf stallion. He turned out black out of a black mare. Yeah, more. You see our barn in the background there. That was a steep hill, and you could just see the roof of the barn. That was a big old monument, that barn was. Yep, everybody remembers Hard Ass Earl, but there's the soft side of my dad. My brother-in-law, Dave, and I riding a couple horses. As I remember, Dave got off, and his horse started to wander. I think that was Sunday and Dandy were that pair. They were out of my Jill mare. And my horse started taking off for the woods, and I bailed. And no nothing, fear nothing back then. I wasn't very afraid. I would be terrified today. That's my niece, Beth, and I. That's probably Fancy. We're riding in the yard there. That's definitely Fancy. First foal we raised out of old Jill. She was a tank. Kind of like, reminds me a lot of the Libby mare. Pair of mares, we raised a lot of mares out of them. That stud would have made a good bull on a dairy. I don't know if they're mares or not. Probably, though, and they're waiting for their moms to come back. My dad sold a lot of his as weanlings, and I would wait until they were maybe a 3-year-old and had quite a lot of work into them and were started pretty well and trained before I'd sell mine. So I remember this day, we were going to take these guys to a fair or something, show them in the mare and foal class. We didn't know how we were going to get those foals in the trailer. We thought about it for a while, then we went in and had some breakfast and came out, and there they were in the trailer. The trailer that I bought for Dad at 14 years old, and I'll tell that story here in a bit. There's just some more of our lush pasture. That's actually looking right toward my house, if you could see through that hill. Yep, there's me. Sharp dresser, white shirt and baggy pants. my baseball hat from the team I belong to, the Padres. That's our stallion there. And that's my uncle up the road. Was a pretty important part of my life, and he had a farm just about identical to ours, except later he started milking jerseys. And he kept Belgians. That one's I think a quarter horse, the one all the way to the left. But the one looking at the camera with the star weighed 2,300 pounds the day he sold her. That was a pretty big horse back then. Feeding hay was a big part of things. Look how dark those mares were back then. They turned white later. I guarantee that collar on that mare is one of the ones I used in the barn here the other day to show a demonstration on collaring. But feeding hay, that was a big part of things. You're going to see a lot of pictures with the horses looking uncomfortable in the bit. And my dad used just a soft bit, usually a straight bit on most every horse. Actually, a jointed snaffle bit on that one. Everybody else got a straight one. He was just so big and strong and heavy-handed, actually. He was in their mouths too much. He didn't have a lot of sensitivity in his hands. There we are with a different team, the mare and stud, going to feed hay on the long sled. Same day. I don't know if you could see the dog behind me or not. He always rode on there. Coming around the bend with the mares. We had a lot of poor pictures. Yep, there's a lamb and some kittens. The beast from the wild will be led by a little child, and the lion shall lay down with the lamb. Shearing sheep. I'll tell a quick story about shearing sheep. We used to keep around 250 to 300 ewes, and we'd sell our lambs every fall. And at shearing time in April, that was my spring break project. My job was to catch them and set them up for the shears and tie wool. We'd sort the rams out. And one year we put them in a long pen in front of the cow stanchions, kind of long and narrow, about 60, 70 feet long, and maybe not that long, probably all of 60 feet though, and 15 feet wide. And the damn fools didn't know each other without wool, and they got fighting, and one of them started on one end of the pen and the other started on the other end of the pen, and met in the middle and broke both their necks and killed each other right there. So we got the tractor and loader and started stringing them up, got the hide off them, and we were going to butcher them up and get some mutton, you know, to salvage. And we remembered that, you know, 2 days earlier when we'd wormed them, we had given them medicine, and, you know, that we couldn't give them, when we sheared them, we gave them medicine and wormer. And anyway, we couldn't use the meat. So we lost a lot that day. But more sheep, heifers. Dad always raised heifers, did some cow dealing. More sheep. Mary had a little lamb. So this cow, that was Dory. She was in the sheep pen. Nice little yearling Jersey calf there my dad got for me. She grew up to be quite a cow. She was an 18,000 pound cow back in the 90s. That was pretty good, especially for a Jersey. When I was 13, my dad fell down a hay chute, broke his collarbone and 3 vertebrae in his back. This was on April 13th. I would have been 13. I don't know, would that be 89? Something like that. And yeah, and I was 13. I had to run the whole farm by myself. He was in the hospital 2 weeks, and, you know, another couple weeks recovering. You know, I had 250 sheep to take care of. We were feeding silage out with the horses every day and hay, and took care of that. And, you know, started spring work. We had our plowing done in the fall, but, you know, doing all the April and May stuff you do on a farm. Even got some planting done. And I grew up pretty quick taking care of that whole farm by myself. We'd kept about a dozen horses that year. And anyway, that was the present for taking care of stuff, was that cow. Heifer calf back then. But she had, I don't know, 8 calves, and 6 of them were milking, and I kept them on my uncle's farm up the road, and proved to be a pretty profitable gift, actually. So, well, it wasn't all work. There's my old coonhound Howard. He had rickets. That's still the same wood stove we use. And we knew somebody at a cottage cheese factory, and they worked there, and they gave us lots of cottage cheese, and somehow that cottage cheese got him over the rickets, and Howard grew up to be a good, strong dog and pretty good coonhound. So, there's Oliver. He was our second good border collie sheepdog. Kind of like pulling horses. You go through a few that aren't real good before you get one that is, and Oliver was not as good as the first dog, but he was pretty darn good. There's the first dog, Ahab. He was exceptional. Yeah, legendarily good. There he is. He was a good pet, too. And right behind Ahab, wearing his bow, you see my beanbag chair, but you also see my gun rack. I had a Marlin 22 Magnum and a single-shot 20 gauge, and I lived for hunting. Small game. Loved woodchucks. Thought I was Davy Crockett. There's my dad and my uncle giving the dog little table scraps. Same picture. There's my niece Beth leading the lamb on a rope and Ahab overseeing things. Always had a few bottle lambs. Babe and lady on a two-way sulky plow, John Deere. That'd be my grandpa in the foreground. My mom's dad and my niece Beth. Plowing with 3. We did a lot of plowing with 3 on a Pioneer plow. That was actually a two-way Syracuse here. That's up to my uncle's farm, and that's me walking down the road with a pair of Belgians. Pretty good plowing, if you notice. I think that's why we took that picture. I think Bob Mishka took this picture at a plowing festival once. That was a mare, a stud in the furrow, a mare all the way on the near side on the left, and in the middle was their foal. So, same team. That was me on the plow. And this was, I remember this, May 3rd, 1992. I can't remember yesterday, but I remember that. And I remember everything right down to 2 and 3 years old. I don't know how, but I can't remember, that I got to put a check in the mail today, but I do remember that. That's Alex Christian from the Percheron Association. And he came out to one of our plowing festivals and gave me a trophy in honor of for appreciating what we do for the Percheron breed. Kind of funny. I ended up being a Belgian breeder in later years. Hooking 4 to a two-bottom tractor plow there. And there we are. 4 wide on the drag. I know it doesn't show the horses very well, but that's me running along. That was always my job, to run along and, grab them, move a cross line or fix something or make sure the lines weren't over the hames or adjust the plow or fix a knotter on a binder or something. Yeah, there I am running. That's what I had to do. By God, that's what I did too if I was asked. Yep, 4 on the drag. We had our plowing done in the fall usually. There we are on the grain drill. Doc and Jill drilling oats. Doc and Jill drilling oats. That's me in front and my dad in back. Oh, I bet we're putting the grain drill away for the year there, headed back to the barn. Ontario grain drill. We used to use that as a corn planter. Let me go back to this. We used to take some kind of heavy cardboard and make 3 different chutes, and we could make a 3-row corn planter out of that. Some you could, some you couldn't. I know the Ontario didn't crack your corn seed. Some of them, like a Superior, maybe even a John Deere, would crack your corn seed. The Ontario didn't. Of course, you didn't have a marker, so you'd have to guess at how far to drive off, and my dad was good at that. But yep, grain drill for a corn planter. My dad was the only one I ever saw do that. Caldepacton, that was the first day we hooked that stud. I say we, I wasn't even there, but my dad drove him up to the field, backed him up, and hooked him on, and went to work. And if that looks like a fishpole stick he broke out of the brush leaning over his shoulders, it's because it is. He was kind of a rough dude. And there we are on the grain binder, cutting oats. Lots of these pictures. stud and 2 mares there on the grain binder. Yep. Yep, there's another picture of Dad being hard on the lines. I think what happened, he was so big, he weighed over 250 pounds, and the grain drill binder was trying to tip over, counterbalance over backwards, and then he'd kind of feel that fall and going over backwards, he'd get in the lines a little much. There, he's got everything settled down, and there I am walking beside. Yep. Grain binder again, got some shocks. We were very particular on making shocks. Gathering up for the thresher. Mare and the stud, that's me driving. Our friend Cork Willett pitching oats. There's Corky again, and our thrashing machine in the barn, that was a Oliver Red River Special. Powered it with a Farmall H. There I am standing in front of the horses while everybody else works. Like I said, Dad would always get 90 bushel to the acre and a lot of times 100, and some good straw and good heavy oats. They would weigh, they started at 40 pounds per bushel, and that's unheard of around here. There he is on the corn binder. Corn binder with me walking. That was my job. Corn binder, corn binder. Corn binder from behind. So we carry that to the insulage cutter. There's the Farmall H. And we had a homemade pit silo, and you know, carry wagon loads of corn up to the insulage cutter, and it was a Blizzard insulage cutter. Chop it into the corn pit silo, and like I said, that's where that spring I had to feed the silage out of there. Shoveled it on by hand, shoveled a big wagon load every day, and fed the sheep. So we're done with that and headed home on the empty wagon. That's me driving. The Country Drafters was a draft horse club we had up around Springville area. I don't know, maybe it predated the Collins Draft Horse Club, which we're still a part of. Anyway, this was a sled rally we had, and this is where Springville Walmart and Tractor Supply and Route 219 and every monument to urban sprawl in the world is now. You know, Tim Hortons, I don't even know what the hell they have up there, but we used to have sled rallies and plowing events there, and now it's just suburbia. This was Allegheny County Fair, 1990, so my mare would have been probably a 4-year-old, and maybe 5, and she won that class, actually. I got awful sick of getting last place, and I don't know what I did different that day. Maybe I presented her better, but we actually won that class. And there's the mare at Cattaraugus County Fair with a foal getting a drink. I think that was a mare and foal class. Didn't love showing, but we did a lot of it. Get a sire down to, could have been Produce a Dam, actually. Either one, down to Allegheny County Fair. Another mare and foal class. My dad with a little foal. Yes, that's a members only jacket. My old mare Jill, she looks to be young there. She grew forever. She was not a very big 2- and 3-year-old, and she grew until she was almost 8, and she was a 1,850 pound horse. It was 17-1 and just beautiful. But yeah, I don't know, maybe the members only jacket scared her into not growing as quick as some. One of the Percher and Quarter horses in a single horse class. Yep, getting a little drink. Milburn wagon I bought there. Same picture, I think. Yeah, that's our farm wagon. That's the one we used to pitch silage in and feed. But getting ready for the fair, giving it a paint job. You see the newspapers wrapped around it. Whoa, looking shiny. Probably Chautauqua County Fair, back when they had classes. Yeah, break in between classes. There we are, Wyoming County Fair. We still compete there. I announce it, actually, and Nick competes. But one of our foals, seeing the mama. Cattaraugus County Fair, pair of mares. The Percher and Quarter horses. There we are, mare and a stud. Cattaraugus County Fair, Dad winning. Same thing there. Yeah, that was Erie County Fair. We didn't know anything about tandem hitch, but they offered a class and didn't have a lot of entries. So Harold Fair, sitting on the seat with my dad, Said, Earl, will that stud behave? And my dad said, damn right he would. So we put the stud out front, and his daughter, whoa, I dropped the phone. My hand's falling asleep. Put the stud's daughter behind in the thills and went out there, and they won the class. Harold and my dad. Harold was quite a horseman. Here's the trailer I bought my dad in 1990, I think. And the story behind that was this Ford truck, 1990. And my dad had just got that Ford truck. I was 14 years old, and I was feeding some hay with it. It was still dry enough that we could get on the ground. We didn't need to hook the horses. I come out of the field right here where I live now. And, you know, I grew up in the Dukes of Hazzard and Evel Knievel days, and I'm fishtailing and having a good time, and lost control and wham, right into a tree. Smashed it pretty bad. The door, the fender, some on the box, and, you know, brand new truck. I don't think it had 2,000 miles. And the insurance company, it was $3,300 worth of damage, and they wrote Dad the check for $3,300, and he never fixed the truck. He drove it like that as long as he owned it with the damage, and he bought that trailer. So I always joke that I bought that trailer for my dad. But maybe the bigger picture is that was Chautauqua County Fair. We had a pretty good day. Did some winning out there that day. Pike Fair, we did some winning. We had some good days. My niece Beth, she won a class. Yay, Beth. I love you, Beth. Allegheny County Fair, 1994. We had a good day then, too, by the looks. And that trophy you saw in the hood of the truck, there's my dad driving out to get it and come back driving the team with the other hand. That was Chautauqua County Fair. Looks like they drew a crowd back then. The same team, Doc and Jill, winning a Best Appearing trophy. Yeah, we also did some horse pulling. The back of this picture says Holland. This was in Holland, and that's my Rambo horse and Jill. Rambo and his little brother Fozzie, Allegheny County Fair, state champion. I'm sure I was not state champion, but the pull is the state championship. We've went on to win, never the championship pull, but we've won the farm class a few times there. There's Rambo and Fozzie. My buddy Mildy helping me hook. Barry Flint on the other side. Rambo and Fozzie doing some logging. That's a lot of what we did. We don't have a ton of pictures of logging in those days, but I'm skidding on the ground there. Dad's organizing a good landing. There goes my dad back. My gosh, that'd be the very early 90s or late 80s. And I can't find it, but I had a picture of him passing that tree logging about 10 years later, and that tree grew about 10 inches in diameter. And you saw the logging pictures earlier of our operation to start the video. There I am. There I am getting a little more grown up. There I am hooking the H to the shit spreader. Yep, my dad and I at my friend's wedding. Kind of tragic the way that all played out later. And then there's me and my buddy Tony Solomon pulling horses. And I suppose that was about the end of childhood for me. So, well, folks, hope you enjoyed the trip down memory lane. And hey, one thing. If anybody remembers this, the Country Drafters, there it is, 1989, 4th Annual Sled Rally. If anybody remembers the Country Drafters, I know the Vicinics were a big part of it. I can't think of some of the families. We had a lot of fun, but anybody remembers that, let me know, because kind of a fun part of my childhood to remember. So, folks, I appreciate you hanging in there and hope you enjoyed this video.